Hey gang, Dr. Steve here, your Patriot Professor. Today I'm not in the studio. Sometimes it's travel, sometimes it's family, sometimes I need a day to step back, pray, and be human for a minute. But I never want a day to go by where you feel alone in this fight. So my team and I have built a special library of unique episodes, quieter, more reflective conversations. No breaking news, no pressure. Just you and me walking through what it actually means to rebuild faith and restore family and reclaim freedom. You're about to see one of them. Treat it like a real walk. Pause it, sometimes hits you if it hits you in a certain place. Think it through, pray over it, and then come into the comments and share what stood out most. Your voice and your story is what makes this more than a video. Thank you, guys. Love you. God bless. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, on one of my Turley walks. So absolutely beautiful out here, and I'm so glad to have you here with me as we take a walk together and talk about some of the biggest issues in the world today. We've been talking a lot about the rise of what's called theopolitics. So theopolitics is the study of how theological cosmovisions organize political power, determining their sovereignty, identity, and the direction of nations, as it were. And in our previous videos, we talked a lot about things like how religious demographics are fueling the rise of the theopolitics around the world, how those demographics are changing constitutions and political order, especially like we saw in Hungary over the last 16 years. We've looked at the rise of civilizational populism and civilization states reshaping Western politics and indeed global politics with China and Russia. And that's what I want to talk about. We now turn outward to one of the most consequential non-Western theopolitical architectures in the emerging world, and that's China, and particularly their doctrine of what's known as Tianxia, which means it encapsulates the idea of all under heaven. All under heaven. It's a cosmic vision. So simply put, the secular analyst who tries to understand China's, say, for example, their Belt and Road Initiative, purely on economic terms or infrastructure investment or just the accumulation of raw geopolitical power, they're frankly blind. Yes, of course, there is infrastructure investment, there is geopolitical leverage, of course, but a purely secular analysis would be blind to the cosmovision that animates both. And it's obviously bigger than China. The emerging multipolar world is not a redistribution of power among secular states. That's not how to think of multipolarity. It's a competition among cosmovisions. And it's fundamentally different theological answers to how the world ought to be ordered. I hope the microphone unfortunately picks up a lot of wind. I'm sorry for that. Now, in terms of China's answer to that and how it relates to the world and its distinctive cosmovision, the term for Chinese cosmovision is Tianxia, Tinxia, Tianxia. And it's not a historical metaphor. It's actually a living political theology. For 3,000 years, Chinese civilization operated on a foundational cosmological conviction. China is the Hua, yes, not the Marines, the HUA, the civilized moral code of the world. The emperor was considered the son of heaven. He was the axis mundi, really the point where heaven and earth met, like the cross in Christianity. His moral virtue maintained the harmony of the cosmos. His realm was not simply China, the nation state. It was Tianxia, all under heaven. The entire moral order of the world, with China at its very center. So this was not understood as imperial ambition. It was understood as cosmic responsibility. But first, right now, an estimated 31 million Americans are taking GLP-1 medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. But as more people start using them, more concerns are starting to surface as well. In just the past few months alone, lawsuits tied to these drugs have nearly doubled in the United States, jumping from around 2,000 cases at the beginning of the year to nearly 4,000 today. I mean, look at these celebrities who succumb to what's called Ozempic face. That doesn't look like the picture of health to me. Now, some of these side effects could be much more serious, including stomach paralysis, organ death, anxiety, depression, and sudden vision loss. Some people are even reportedly dying. For many people, weight gain may have less to do with willpower and more to do with what's happening in your gut. Researchers are learning more every year about how much the gut microbiome impacts things like cravings, bloating, inflammation, digestion, mood, energy levels, and long-term weight management. So instead of simply slowing the digestive system down, many people are now looking for ways to actually support their gut naturally. And that's one reason kimchi has gotten so much attention of late. Kimchi has 900 plus beneficial probiotics that help support digestion, reduce bloating, improve regularity, and promote a healthier gut environment naturally. Some studies have even pointed to kimchi's remarkable ability to support healthy body composition. In one preclinical study, researchers observed body fat reductions of up to 31.8%. Now, the problem is that most people simply aren't eating enough kimchi consistently to see meaningful results. So that's why Brightcore created Kimchi One, with over 900 plus strains of beneficial bacteria that deliver all the benefits of real kimchi in convenient capsules. No taste, no smell, non-GMO, and 100% made right here in the USA. Today, you can try Kimchi One by clicking the link below for 25% off your order, or for the best deal available, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off plus free shipping. Give them a call now at 888-597-0233. That's 888-597-0233.
So the emperor did not conquer solely to acquire territory. He conquered, given this theology, to harmonize, to extend the reach of moral order outward from the civilized center into the barbarian periphery. Again, yes, very similar to Rome. The tributaries who acknowledge Chinese primacy were not submitting technically to a foreign power. They were participating in the universal moral order. Remember, Tianxia is fully cosmic in its vision of a civilizational Chinese political order. Again, what's one of the reasons why I think they call civilization cosmocracy. Now, as I noted, this is 3,000 years old. They just invent this framework. Back in 2017, he had formally adopted Tianxia language as the guiding framework for Chinese foreign policy. So he referenced in this landmark speech a community with a shared future for all mankind. That is China. China represents one cosmos, all under heaven as one family. And what we have to understand is these aren't slogans. They are very precise theological claims about China's role in world order. And what Tianxia does in practice is it legitimizes Chinese power projection as moral harmonization for the people, for the Chinese people, rather than coercive expansion. So resistance to Chinese primacy becomes not legitimate national interest. It actually becomes civilizational disorder under this cosmic vision of Tianxia. And the mandate of the harmonizer is to restore that order. When Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative back in 2013, he invoked the ancient Silk Road. But what he was constructing was a modern version of the imperial tributary system, the imperial tributary system, updated now with financial instruments, state-owned enterprises, digital infrastructure. Xi says this all the time. The CCP is the modern version of Confucianism. And the scale is absolutely staggering of this BRI, this Belt and Road Initiatives. Over 150 countries have signed BRI agreements. That's 70-80% of the world. Chinese built to Chinese financed ports, railways, highways, fiber networks now stretch from Pakistan to Sri Lanka, from Kenya to Greece, including port deals adjacent at one time to the Panama Canal. But here's what the secular infrastructure analyst ultimately misses here. The ancient tributary system did not merely export Chinese goods. It exported Chinese texts, Confucian classics, ritual protocols, cosmological frameworks to align the minds of the various vassal states. The digital Silk Road, in many respects, is doing the same thing. BRI is installing Chinese surveillance architecture. BRI is installing Chinese telecom networks. BRI is installing Chinese cloud platforms, exporting China's technological worldview, its standard of governance, its model of social control. So China's not merely rising inside a multipolar world. For a decade, it has been very self-consciously and deliberately wiring one together around itself, with Tianxia as the cosmological logic and the BRI as its geopolitical machinery. Now, what's so key here is that Tianxia, in many respects, explains precisely why we're seeing what we're seeing in the Persian Gulf right now and what's going on with Iran. Because Trump's bombing campaign and the US-led embargo, or blockade, I guess I should say, of Iran, is in many respects a clash of two competing cosmovisions. And no, I am not talking about Iran's Shiite theocracy. I'm talking between the competing cosmovisions of China and the theopolitics of the United States. Now, if you saw my video on America's City on a Hill, Theopolitics, the talk I gave at the Caesar Rodney Institute, where this is where Reagan's famous line, quoting John Withrop, who himself cited Christ in the Sermon on the Mount as the theological foundation of our nation. You know the phrase, "We are a shining city on a hill." That's been the defining cosmovision of America for the last 400 years, before it was even a formal nation. It's the theologic behind Manifest Destiny, where America is seen as the promised land that Christians were called to inherit. It's also the theopolitics behind the Monroe Doctrine, in that America is destined to rule the whole of the Western Hemisphere. Again, we are a shining city on a hill. The hill is the hemisphere. That cosmovision of America, centered around a networked multipolarity all over the world, is challenging the Belt and Road Initiative of China, rooted in their Tianxia, all under heaven political order. As far as Trump was concerned, China was slowly but surely becoming the main player in the Middle East. They were the chief financier of Iran, buying up to 90% of their oil. They were financing railroads and highways and all kinds of building projects. And they were beginning to have de facto control over the Strait of Hormuz, the single most important energy choke point in the planet, 20% of the world's oil supply going through that strait. And that influence stood in stark defiance to the Abraham Accords regional architecture that Trump had brokered in his first term. So what we're seeing in the Middle East is a clash between a China-backed Iranian Shiite order, with all of its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, and an America-backed Abrahamic order with Israel and the Gulf states finally allied. But make no mistake, underneath the surface of this is an ultimate clash between China's all under heaven theopolitics and America's city on a hill politics. Right? Somebody's cosmovision is going to provide the security and define the architecture of the Middle East region. And Trump is challenging the architecture of China with one that is distinctly American. So this is how theopolitics can actually help inform and illuminate what's happening in and around the world around us. And I love to say reality is a lot stranger than fiction, but it's also, yeah, incredible. It's much, much more interesting. And we're only at just the beginning of it all. Thanks for taking a walk with me. Love you guys.
Before you go, don't let the mainstream control your weekend mood. Every Friday, I put together a weekly wrap-up with real wins, real momentum, and proof that Patriots are actually winning in 2026. No spin, no doom script, just the truth about what God's doing through faith, family, and freedom. Click the link below to get this week's wrap-up free and start your weekend encouraged, not demoralized.